Good morning, hello there, Sustainable Soil for Life course participants. I am Eyasu from Ethiopia. Today I shall be speaking about soil erosion threats in the Ethiopian highlands, causes and intervention scenarios. By way of background, I'll highlight something about the Ethiopian highlands. There is a huge diversity in topography, agroecological zones and soils in the Ethiopian highlands. Highland mixed livestock system crop livestock system is a dominant farming system. Staple cereals such as maize, wheat, barley, and teff, ragrostis, zouk are the most dominant staples that provide the bulk of the food for the population. Ethiopia has the largest livestock population in Africa that are managed through free-range grazing. And livestock mainly provides a draft power for land preparation. Ethiopia is characterized by a diverse range of agroecological zone and climate conditions. This slide shows the diversities, the agroecological zone maps of Ethiopia. The map shows about 32 major agroecological zones, but tepid, submoist, cool mid-highlands are the most dominant in the highland. These are the yellow dots in the map. These are the tepid, submoist, cool highland that are useful for production of both temperate and tropical crops. The diversities in pedogenetic factors such as geology, climate, topography, and vegetation have resulted in a wide range of soil types in Ethiopia. To this effect, Ethiopia is sometimes named as the soil museum of the world. The FAO 1 in 2 million scale soil map of Ethiopia has identified 18 soil types, among which leptosols, nitisols, cambisols, and vertisols, fluvisols, and regosols account for about 70% of the soil landscape. This map shows that the leptosols are dominant in northeastern highlands. These are the yellow ones, the light yellow color ones are the leptosols. These soils are shallow soils that are developed on elevated landscapes and river gorges and very much susceptible to erosion. The nitisols are among the well-developed soils. They are dominant in the southwestern and western highlands and along luvisols in the northwestern and southwestern highlands. And the cambisols are mainly in the southern, southeastern, and integrating with leptosols in the northeastern highlands. The vertisols are all over the country, but crisscrossing the country from northwest to southeast and in the center, but at the same time they are also dominant in the Gambela lowlands. Ethiopian soils are among the most eroded soils in the world in sub-Saharan Africa, and gullies characterize much of the soil landscapes as shown in this slide. Runoff quite often exceeds 80% of the rainfall, and crop fields and grazing lands are completely flooded and washed away by runoff. As a result, each year rivers and streams wash away 1.9 billion tons of fertile soils. For example, this one is the Blue Nile that is carrying fertile silt down to the downstream countries. The rate of soil erosion is estimated to be among the highest in sub-Saharan Africa. The study by FAO identified 130 tons per hectare per year of soil is lost from cultivated fields. For other land use types such as grazing areas, it's about 42 tons per hectare. The annual production loss due to soil erosion is estimated to be about 2%. That compromises the national food security and predisposes the population to hunger. The production loss is mainly ascribed to loss of rooting depths, organic matter, and nutrients. The causes for alarming rates of soil erosion are many and diverse, but they can be categorized into natural factors, land use factors, human factors, and policy factors. The natural factors include rugged terrain, climate extremes of high rainfall in short period of time in the highland areas. The land use factors include cultivation of steep slopes, lack of vegetative cover during inception of the rains, repeated tillage to create smooth seedbed for small cereals. The human factors is mainly relates to poverty. Large population, about 102 million people are depending on the natural resources, especially the forests. And when the forests are cleared, In the upstreams, especially in the high slope areas, it predisposes the soil for degradation. The policy factors mainly is the lack of land use policy, and previously land tenure was also a problem. People are cultivating slopes as high as 50% gradient. The slide shows the rugged terrain in the northeastern highlands with dissected side slopes, river gorges. The high rainfall ranging between 1,500 to 2,000 millimeter within short period of time, less than 3 months during the rainy season, is very much problematic because rainfall is concentrated and is causing loss of erosion. And soils are bare at the onset of the rainy season, which is another problem. Land use factor, mainly removal of crop residues as cattle feed and burning dung instead of recycling for soil fertility enrichment. This slide shows the cultivation of steep slopes, slopes as high as 30% or 50% or more without conservation practices in place. Another land use factor is overgrazing. Because of large population of livestock, cattle are driven into cultivated fields after harvesting, and they destroy all the barns as well as eat up crop residues and seedlings. With this background, we need to discuss about plan of action. Before discussing the plan of action for effectively controlling soil erosion in the Ethiopian highlands, we need to provide some basic data for scenarios to build on. Ethiopia has land mass of 122 million hectares, 27 million hectares of which are potentially arable, 53 million hectares are grazing land, which shows that grazing is one of the most extensive land use type in the Ethiopian highlands. The rest are deserts and semi-arid, semi-deserts that are little suitable for cultivation or human habitation. There are some key questions that need to be addressed in order to develop some effective ways of soil water conservation. And I identified 2 questions. One is, what will happen if nothing were done to reduce soil erosion at the current rate? This is what we can call the business as usual scenario. The other alternative scenario is, what effective soil water conservation strategies can be possibly implemented to prevent agriculture within the present agricultural, social, and economic context. And this actually leads us to what we call the future conservation scenario. When we consider the business as usual scenario, we believe that the annual loss of soil, 30,000 hectares of soil to erosion, will render about 6 million hectares to degrade beyond repair in the coming 20 years. The soil fertility depletion will be accelerated with nutrient loss of about 30 kg nitrogen, 15 to 20 kg phosphorus and potassium per hectare per year. And as a result, agricultural production will continue to reduce by about 2% per year, and that would increase hunger, poverty, and vulnerability to famine. And at the end of the day, it will take another 70 years until degraded lands are all fully rehabilitated, and of course at a much higher cost than intervening now. The future conservation scenario needs to consider the sectors that need priority attention, and developing effective ways of addressing soil erosion threats lies in the following 3 sectors in my view. Number 1 is family planning in the social sector. And number 2 is community-based land rehabilitation in the environmental sector. And number 3 is the livestock development in the agriculture subsector. Why do we have to consider family planning? This is because high population pressure is one of the underlying causes for soil degradation. In this figure, I try to show that there is a linear increase with increasing number of population for cultivated land. The cultivation area cultivated will be increasing with increasing number of population. This is a linear increase. And fertility rates are high currently in Ethiopia, 5 children per woman, and the population of 102 million grows at 2.9% per year. And at this growth rate, and with low levels of technological advancement, the soil water conservation interventions may not succeed unless we try to address this linear increase in cropland with increasing population. And this study was done by Horney 2009. What can we do in terms of family planning? The target must be to reduce current population growth rate to 2.4% in the next 10 years, and then to 1.2% if possible in the next 20 years. And this is achievable, and it can be done through health extension, which is started by the government recently, needs to be expanded, awareness raising among rural population, training and dissemination of contraceptives, policy measures defining the number of children per family, which might be difficult culturally. The environmental rehabilitation. Before we consider future scenario, we really need to take lessons from previous experiences. There was massive soil water conservation campaign in Ethiopia between 1970s and mid-1980s, following the devastating drought and famine during those years. With a fund from international community, Food for Work payments funded the construction of about 800,000 kilometers soil and stone bands on crop fields, and more than 600,000 kilometers of hillside terraces. Tens and hundreds of thousands of areas were also treated with afforestation. However, the conservation efforts were neither effective nor sustainable. There could be various reasons for this, but there are two reasons that can be highlighted here. One is the structural nature of the measures. Vegetative measures and agronomic measures were lacking, and the structural measures such as bands, terraces, and check dams were the major focus. And that is, those structural measures were not fitting in the farming system. Top-down planning and lack of community participation is another major problem. There was coercive engagement of people by denying them grazing lands or cropping fields, and that created resentment. Recently, however, by learning from the past failures, the government of Ethiopia has initiated what we call community-based land rehabilitation in the watersheds. In this program, individual households provide about 40 days of free labor to implement soil water measures, conservation measures on communal lands, well, at some time also on individual fields, under the guidance of the extension workers in the field. However, the program faces a number of limitations. I'd like to highlight only two of them. One is design and layout problem for the implementation of structural measures, such as bands and terraces. Again, the structural measures are still most dominant. Construction of bands and terraces is still a key component, and while at the same time vegetative and agronomic measures are not taken on board. And these are actually most effective in controlling soil erosion than bands and terraces. So combining the structural measures with cultural measures is suggested here. Number three, controlling free grazing in the livestock sector. Like I said, the large population of animals are managed through free-range grazing, and they destroy all the conservation structures and seedlings. And they at the same time trample the soil on hillsides, and that accelerates soil erosion. And they eat up all the crop residues in the field in the aftermath of crop harvest. Therefore, controlled grazing needs to be implemented by promoting, for example, cut and carry feeding system, and by developing backyard fodder development, and better utilization of crop residues for animal feeding and the like. Such kind of interventions have been piloted in Amara region, and they developed land use policy to control free-range grazing. And that experience need to be documented and scaled up in other regions as well. In conclusion, the misperception of soil erosion in Ethiopia needs to be cleared. There is a general perception that soil erosion is a loss of physical soil material alone, and its treatment was, its conservation was treated in isolation of other farm activities, and this needs to be corrected, because conservation needs to be embedded in all other aspects of soil management, farm activity, rather than isolated construction of bands or terraces. Emphasis should be given, shifted from physical structures alone to the use of vegetative and agronomic measures as well, combined with structural measures. That would be more effective. Structural measures will be reinforced when vegetative biological measures such as grass strips or seedlings are planted on the structures, and they are more effective in stabilizing the structures as well. The community-based watershed protection activities that are initiated recently need to be scaled out and strengthened, especially in terms of design and layout support for the physical structure implementation, as well as regular monitoring and evaluation or learning lessons. Land suitability classification and livestock management are also crucially important in order to sustain soil water conservation efforts in different agroecological zones. I thank you. These are the references that I have used, and anybody can trace them. I thank you very much.